And it's a great time to bring in the assistant general manager of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Ted Goveia, who's been in that role since 2013, Argos before that, and then highly successful in junior football and university. Ted joining us today. How you doing, Ted?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Good to chat football with you, sir. Where are you joining us from today, by the way? Are you in the Peg?
Oh, no, I'm in Southern Ontario. I flew back on Saturday, and I've been in quarantine ever since, so I appreciate the opportunity to talk with somebody. I've been locked up for 5 days.
It's a good time to talk CFL football, too, by the way. And I'm not going to get too in-depth in the comings and goings and that kind of thing, but I do want to ask a couple things that maybe you could just, shed some light on for CFL fans across the country. This 1 week prior negotiation window that's new, how you feel about that, and then I want to get into the virtual draft the virtual combine and that kind of thing that's coming up. But how's it changed business, this week prior window that we have now to free agency?
Well, I think there's a little more transparency. I think it's still a relationship-based business. So, people talk all the time. We talk with agents all the time. And so you're exchanging information and following shows to gather information. But it hasn't changed a whole lot,
Yeah. Well, and so the movement that's gone on now with the salary cap and the constraints of the CFL, have you been surprised by these moves, or Ted, you've been around the CFL long enough that nothing surprises you anymore?
Well, I think this situation's unique, as you know, Rod, that I think the impact of COVID on not only the CFL and sports, but, concerts, entertainment, all kinds of businesses have been affected. So am I surprised that we've had to do things that make sense responsibly and financially that impact people? Not at all. I think that's what needed to be done. And yes, it hurts and it stings, but that's where we're at.
Yeah, that's the nature of the business. I was just thinking the other day, what does COVID have against sports and entertainment? What did we do to COVID? Because it's just ruining what we love so much or hurting it so much. But by the way, I was talking to Murph the other day, and he said he saw you at the Reese's Senior Bowl in Mobile. How was that, Ted?
Well, it was awesome. I wanted to get on the road. I usually spend about 100 days on the road every year, and this year I haven't. So, with all the draft picks that were going to be at the two events that I went to, I just felt it was time to get out and get back to what I needed to do. But I was careful.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, what was it like being at the Reese's Senior Bowl? I had to listen to it on the radio because I was on the road myself, and it sounded wonderful. But how was it different from past Senior Bowls?
Well, it was wonderful to be out. They moved it to a different stadium, to South Alabama, that I had spent some time at, when it was just a grass field. So I loved seeing what they did with the facilities there. The environment was good, but it was different. I mean, people were distancing, and it was a little harder to get into things. It was a bit of a ghost town in terms of the social part. A lot of it's networking and talking to agents and connecting with people. So that part didn't exist to a big degree, but the player part was great. The players are always good. And to get a chance to see them compete live and to have 3 Canadian kids going in there and competing against the best in the NCAA, to me was way worth it. It was excellent.
Well, we had Chris Jones on the air last week. I don't know if it was Tuesday or Wednesday, and it was raining. And he had mentioned how all of what you normally would have done for scouting was done virtually that way. And Ted, I don't know if you know, my dad worked in the NHL as a scout for 26 years. I got a pretty good idea how the scouting business goes. And a lot of what you guys want to do is face-to-face, measuring guys, right? Seeing how much hair is on their knuckles, how big are their hands, that kind of thing. So
yes,
you haven't been able to do that for a long time. What was it like at the Senior Bowl?
Well, we were not allowed to participate in the weigh-ins and the measurable parts, but you got to remember, I'm at the Senior Bowl, so usually I'm going to have to wait a long time to get my hands on one of those players anyway. So by the time I get him, all those things don't really matter. He's been playing pro football. I got a pretty good idea of where he's at, and I'll get the pro day numbers and everything else from other people. So that part wasn't important to me. The important thing was seeing the compete level in drills, watching these Canadian kids go against other great players and trying to project where they're going to fit on a CFL field. it's great. When they're doing drills and it's best on best, it beats game film any day. So I loved it and took advantage of every minute we had. It was excellent.
Ted Goveia is the assistant general manager of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Now, just flip that, if you don't mind, to you're back in Canada. We have not had youth sports for a year. My heart just, it's broken for the seniors. Yeah. So, and those Canadians at NCAA have this competitive imbalance, right? You saw the Scouting Bureau rankings when they came out. They're all NCAA guys. So can you talk about, for the fans of the CFL that don't really understand about this draft coming up this spring and the combine, how this has affected things?
Well, I think from a scouting perspective, the thing that a lot of people don't realize is there's more eliminating people than qualifying people. At some point, you're qualifying people, but being able to see people live and in action, you get an idea on demeanor and interaction and how they are with the game on the line and the level of competition they're playing against. You can see that with your eyes if you've been doing it for a long time. So not having the ability to do that is hard. It's harder to eliminate people. And, let's face it, Rod, everybody looks good when they put together their best 20 clips on a highlight reel with some funky music and send it to you. And they played 500 snaps of football that season. So, it's harder to eliminate, and the job, you got to work harder at it and longer at it. I think that would be a major change.
Oh, I know. And here's the thing. I had GMs and assistant GMs in the CFL telling me last year when you guys had to do the draft virtually, they're like, we're not going to get a pass here if we screw up this draft because of COVID. And, that was when I first started. Like, you've seen Doc Rivers get fired because they couldn't win in the bubble, and the Todd Reardon, the coach of the Washington Capitals. Nobody's getting a pass, Ted. You guys must be talking about that amongst yourselves. You still got to have good drafts.
We always have to have good drafts, but Rod, we've got a lot of continuity in our building, and when we go out and see these kids, I'm not just writing up the seniors; I'm writing up every player there. If I go to a practice and there's 80 kids, I'm not watching 80. I got a pretty good idea before I get there who I need to watch, and I've been doing it a while. A lot of the guys coaching now played for me, or I coached. So those relationships and stuff, they'll point you in the right direction. You need to do the work. But I'm confident that we'll be prepared irregardless of the situation. We'll be ready to go. And we've already got a list, and we've been working at it for years. So,
I bet.
We'll get through it. It's not ideal, but it's not an excuse not to do the job.
Well, the main thing is to get into camp, get on the field, and get playing. And lastly, Ted, we got a few minutes left. Murph said to me, he goes, Goveia would be great. Just ask about what he knows, and he'll go on. So I got one for you. You got a couple of Grey Cup. Yeah, well, every Grey Cup rings, you love them all. They're like your kids. You know, they literally are. But you got a couple real special ones. 2012, the 100th Grey Cup in Toronto. I was there. It was awesome. And then 2019 with the Blue Bombers. Yeah, 2019 with the Blue Bombers. I won't ask you which one's better because it's unfair. But talk about why they're special to you.
Well, obviously your first one's always special. I'm sure you remember your first ones. They mean a lot, right? At that time, I worked with some really, really good people, guys that I learned a lot from, and Steinhauer and Osh and Barker and Chris Jones. And, I'd been coaching there for a couple of years, and to get into the personnel side and see those guys kind of bring it all together, I learned a ton. So, I loved it. It was at home. I'm from Toronto, or at least that area. And if you were there, then you'd remember it was pretty electric. The one in Winnipeg, it's a long time later. So maybe it was more relief than joy. I was just listening to, everything build over the years. We're close, and to get it. And I think that win was more relief. But at the end of the day, you get to a point in your career where you're more looking around, seeing how happy the players are, and how our equipment man are just been there forever, and see him get up there on the stage and do it, or Jake Thomas raise the cup when he's been there for a decade. I think you're more celebrating watching other people with the pleasure they're getting at this stage in the game than you are necessarily thumping your own chest. Although I do appreciate Murphy propping me up like that.
Well, Murph, Yeah, so I said, what do I need to ask Goveia? And he's like, just ask him whatever. Just ask him what he knows, and he'll go.
Yeah,
which
sure.
Yeah, and well, same with Murph. Jones always called him press play. Just press play on Murph. Which I'll never forget. But that's the thing with Bombers Argos. Like, it was for you 10 seasons between Grey Cups, but for Winnipeg, it was 30. So, So again, a bit of an unfair question to ask, but yeah, because they both mean a lot, but I get what it means more to the city, and it would be Winnipeg by a mile. But Ted, we do have to run. I appreciate the chat, and for all the CFL fans watching, there's a face of a guy behind the scenes that makes the CFL go. And if you're supporting the CFL, it's guys like Ted. Ted, thanks for the time.
Thanks for your time, and congrats on the show. I really enjoy it.
Appreciate it, man. Okay, well let's bring you on again soon.
Sounds good.
Ted Goveia, the assistant general manager of the Grey Cup champion Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Can't forget about that.
No, he can't.
It's been a while.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.